The invasion fleet materialized above New Victoria like a swarm of iron locusts, their hulls gleaming with the insignia of the Drouthan supremacy. Warlord Cravish stood before the viewport of his flagship, watching the blue-green world spin beneath him. 47 star systems had fallen before his armada. This would be 48. "Scan complete, Warlord," his tactical officer reported. "Single human colony, population approximately 50,000, no orbital defenses, no military installations. They have basic shields around their cities, nothing more." Cravish's lip curled back, revealing rows of serrated teeth. The Drouthans had evolved as apex predators on a world of endless night, and their biology reflected it. 3 meters tall, covered in natural armor plates, with forearms ending in talons that could rip through steel. They had conquered most of their region of space through simple, overwhelming force. "Open a channel," Cravish ordered. "Let us offer them the standard terms." The communications officer worked quickly. Within moments, the surrender demand broadcast across every frequency on the planet below. The message was simple, as it always was: submit within 1 hour or face complete annihilation. Accept Drouthan rule, provide tribute, send soldiers to serve in the supremacy's endless expansion. Resist and die. Cravish expected the usual responses: panic, desperate military posturing, frantic attempts at negotiation, perhaps some primitive weapons fire that would splash harmlessly against his shields. Instead, the reply that came through made his entire bridge crew pause. A human female appeared on the main screen, young, perhaps in her 3rd decade by human standards. She wore simple clothing, not a military uniform. Her hair was pulled back in a practical style, and her expression was calm, unnervingly calm. "Hello," she said, her voice warm and steady. "My name is Cassidy Webb. I'm the governor of New Victoria. I received your message, and I'd like to invite you to meet with me in person. There's a lovely garden at the government house where we can talk. I'll prepare tea." Silence blanketed the bridge. Then someone snorted. Another officer chuckled. Within seconds, the entire command crew was roaring with laughter. "Tea," one of them howled. "She offers the Warlord tea." Cravish watched the human woman's face. Her smile never wavered. She simply waited patiently for the laughter to subside, like a teacher waiting for unruly children to settle down. Something about that smile made Cravish's combat instincts flicker with warning, though he couldn't identify why. "You find this amusing?" Cravish asked, silencing his crew with a gesture. "I find it hopeful," Cassidy replied. "Most conflicts begin because people don't take time to understand each other. I'd like to understand you, Warlord Cravish, and I'd like you to understand us. Will you come?" More chuckles rippled through the bridge. This human was either incredibly brave or incredibly foolish, possibly both. "Very well," Cravish said. "I will accept your invitation, but understand this, Governor Webb. I come to demonstrate your helplessness, not to negotiate. Your world will submit to the supremacy. The only question is whether your people die first." "I understand what you believe," Cassidy said. "I look forward to our conversation. The coordinates are being transmitted now. Come alone or with guards, as you prefer. You'll be safe here." The transmission ended. Cravish's tactical officer pulled up the coordinates. A building in the colony's capital city, surrounded by open parkland. No apparent defenses. No nearby military installations. "It's a trap," his second-in-command growled. "Obviously," Cravish agreed. "But I am curious about this human's game. Prepare my shuttle and personal guard, 20 warriors, full combat armor." As his crew moved to obey, Cravish studied the planet below. Intelligence reports had described New Victoria as an agricultural colony, established only 15 years prior. The humans had terraformed the world with typical efficiency, but they'd done something unusual. According to the scans, massive portions of the planet remained wild, untouched by development. The cities were small, scattered, connected by minimal infrastructure. "Warlord," the science officer called out, "we're detecting unusual biological signatures across the planet. Large fauna, some very large. The databases are having trouble classifying several species." Show me, Kravish commanded. The displays shifted, showing heat signatures and movement patterns. The officer was right. The planet teemed with life, much of it registering at sizes that seemed improbable. One signature near the capital measured over 40 meters long. Perhaps they keep livestock, someone suggested. Perhaps, Kravish said, though that same instinctive warning flickered again. He pushed it aside. He had conquered fortress worlds. He had broken species that had fought with nuclear fire and quantum weapons. Whatever game this human governor was playing, whatever surprises she thought she had prepared, they would mean nothing against Dralthan might. His shuttle was ready within the hour. Kravish descended through New Victoria's atmosphere with his 20 finest warriors, each a veteran of dozens of campaigns. They wore powered armor that enhanced their already formidable strength. They carried weapons that could level buildings. As they approached the coordinates, Kravish studied the city below. It was small by galactic standards, home to perhaps 10,000 humans. The buildings were low and spread out, with green spaces between them. Beyond the city limits, forests stretched to the horizon. And in those forests, things moved, large things. The shuttle landed in an open plaza near the governor's building. Kravish's guards deployed first, scanning for threats. They found none. The building itself was barely fortified, more like a large house than a government center. Gardens surrounded it, blooming with flowers from a dozen worlds. Cassidy Webb waited at a table in one of those gardens, completely alone. She stood as Kravish approached, that same calm smile on her face. On the table sat an actual teapot and cups, steam rising gently in the afternoon air. "Thank you for coming, Warlord Kravish," she said. "Please sit. I promise the tea isn't poisoned." Kravish remained standing, towering over her. His guards fanned out, weapons ready. "I did not come for pleasantries, human." "I know," Cassidy said gently, "but sometimes pleasantries are where understanding begins. Won't you at least sit?" Against his better judgment, curious despite himself, Kravish sat. The chair groaned under his weight but held. Cassidy poured tea with steady hands. The tea sat untouched between them. Kravish watched this human governor with growing confusion. She showed no fear, not defiance or bravado which he understood and could break. Simply an absence of fear, as if his presence posed no threat whatsoever. "You have 1 hour remaining," Kravish said. "Then my fleet begins bombardment. Your cities will burn, your people will." "Sugar," Cassidy interrupted gently, holding up a small container. Several of Kravish's guards growled, hands tightening on weapons. The warlord raised one hand. Silencing them. "You do not take this seriously," he said. "I take it very seriously," Cassidy replied. "That's why I wanted to meet you. I wanted you to see me as a person, not just a target, and I wanted to see you the same way." She took a sip of her own tea. "You've conquered 47 systems. That's a lot of worlds, a lot of people. Do you ever wonder what drives someone to conquer rather than build?" Kravish's jaw clenched. "The Dralthan supremacy brings order to chaos. We unite fractured species under strong leadership. We end petty conflicts and bring purpose." "Through force," Cassidy observed quietly. "Through strength, the weak submit to the strong. This is natural law." "Is it?" Cassidy set down her cup. "I've studied your people, Warlord. Your homeworld was harsh, your evolution brutal. You survived because you were the strongest predators in your ecosystem. But you're not on your homeworld anymore. Out here, strength takes many forms. Philosophy will not save you, human." "No," Cassidy agreed, "but understanding might." She leaned forward slightly. "Let me tell you about New Victoria. We came here 15 years ago, not to build an empire or claim territory, but to create something different, a sanctuary." "For what?" "For the forgotten, the condemned, the species and creatures that the galaxy decided were too dangerous, too difficult, or too expensive to save." Cassidy's eyes held his. "We went to dying worlds and rescued what we could, animals mostly, predators that other civilizations wanted extinct because they were inconvenient." Kravish snorted. "You keep pets." "We keep family," Cassidy corrected, "and they keep us. We learned to understand them, to communicate with them, to live alongside them. It took time, patience, and yes, some of us died in the process, but we succeeded. Now this world is home to creatures from 60 different planets, creatures that should have gone extinct but didn't because humans refused to give up on them. A touching story, Cravish said. It changes nothing, submit or die. Cassidy stood, walking to the edge of the garden. Beyond it, the city sprawled peacefully in the afternoon sun. I can't do that, Warlord. These people came here to escape violence. They found peace, many for the first time in their lives. I won't surrender that peace to you or anyone else. Then you sentence them to death. No, Cassidy said softly. You do, I'm simply telling. You, it won't be easy. Cravish rose, his full height making the human look tiny by comparison. You have no weapons, no fleet, no army. Your shields will fail within minutes of bombardment. What exactly do you think will stop me? Cassidy turned back to him, and for the first time her smile held something else. Not cruelty or triumph, but sadness. I think you should look up Warlord. Cravish's eyes flicked skyward reflexively. The afternoon sky was clear, blue, empty, nothing. He looked back at the human, anger rising. There is nothing there. Not yet, Cassidy said, but there will be. When you attack, when you threaten this place, you won't just be facing humans. You'll face everything we've protected, everything that calls this world home. And Warlord, she met his eyes directly. They protect us too. Beasts, Cravish spat. You threaten me with animals. I'm not threatening you, Cassidy said quietly. I'm warning you, there's a difference. I don't want this fight. I don't want anyone to die, including your soldiers. But if you force this, if you attack, then yes. You'll learn what it means to face a world where predators and humans stand together. Cravish had heard enough. This human was delusional or stalling or both. He activated his communicator. Prepare the assault wings. We attack in 30 minutes. Please reconsider, Cassidy said. I'm asking you, leader to leader, person to person. Turn your fleet around, leave us in peace. There are uninhabited worlds you could settle, resources you could claim without violence. You don't have to do this. The strong do not ask permission from the weak, Cravish said. He gestured to his guards. We leave. Governor Webb, I would say it has been a pleasure, but we both know that would be a lie. When next we meet, it will be when I return to accept your formal surrender over the ruins of your cities. Then I hope we don't meet again, Cassidy said, because that won't happen. Cravish walked away without responding. His guards fell in around him, weapons still ready. As they boarded the shuttle, his second-in-command leaned close. That human is insane. Agreed, Cravish said, but that warning instinct still nagged at him. Something was wrong here, something his conscious mind couldn't quite identify. The shuttle lifted off, climbing back toward the fleet. Through the viewport, Cravish watched the forests that surrounded the city. Movement. Flickered between the trees, large shapes keeping pace with the shuttle's ascent. Scan those woods, he ordered. Already running, Warlord, detecting multiple large fauna, some very large, but they're just animals. Just animals. Cravish repeated the phrase mentally, trying to convince himself. But he had conquered enough worlds to trust his instincts, and his instincts were screaming that he had missed something crucial. Back aboard the flagship, he found his command crew assembled and ready. Status, he barked. 500 assault dropships prepared, 30,000 shock troops. Once we achieve orbit superiority, we can have forces on the ground within the hour. And the human defenses. Minimal, their shields won't last. We detect no anti-aircraft weapons, no military installations. Warlord, this will be the easiest conquest in the Supremacy's history. The bridge crew murmured agreement. Cravish stared at the planet below, that instinct still screaming. Launch the assault, he ordered. The assault dropships fell through New Victoria's atmosphere like metal rain, 500 craft carrying the elite of the Dralthan military. Inside each ship, shock troops checked their weapons and armor, anticipating an easy victory. They had done this dozens of times before. Land, overwhelm local defenses, secure key positions, wait for surrender. Squad leader Vorth sat in the lead dropship, reviewing tactical displays. The landing zones were clear. No resistance detected. The human city lay open before them like a gift. 4 minutes to landing, the pilot announced. Easy day, the soldier next to Vorth muttered. These humans don't even have proper weapons. Vorth grunted agreement, though something felt wrong. The sky outside was too quiet. No defensive fire, no interceptors, nothing. Then the sensors started screaming. Contacts, the pilot shouted. Multiple airborne signatures incoming fast, very fast. Show me, Vorth commanded. The tactical display lit up with hundreds of signals, approaching the dropship formation from all directions. The shapes were organic, not mechanical, living things, but the size readings made no sense. Those can't be right, someone said. Those signatures are showing creatures 15 meters across. 20 meters, the pilot corrected, his voice rising. Some are 20 meters. What in the void are those things? Through the viewport, Vorth saw them coming. His mind struggled to process what his eyes reported. Massive flying creatures, each supported by 6 enormous wings that caught the light like stained glass. Their bodies were sleek and predatory, built for speed and violence. Rows of teeth-lined jaws that could swallow a Dralthan whole. And on the back of each creature sat a human. Evasive action, Vorth roared, but it was too late. The creatures hit the formation like a hurricane. One of them slammed into a dropship 3 positions to Vorth's left, and he watched in horror as 6 wings wrapped around the hull while massive jaws found the engine housing. Metal screamed. The dropship spun out of control, trailing fire as it fell. More creatures struck. The formation broke apart, each pilot desperately trying to avoid the airborne predators. But these things were faster, more maneuverable, and they hunted with terrible intelligence. Fire, 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 Vorth shouted into the comm. The dropship's defensive weapons came online, filling the sky with plasma bolts and projectile rounds. Some found targets. Vorth saw one creature take a direct hit, heard it shriek in pain as it peeled away from its attack run. Then he saw something that made his blood freeze. The human rider on that wounded creature leaned forward, wrapping both arms around the beast's neck. She was shouting something, her voice carrying over the combat frequencies. Not commands, reassurance, comfort. The creature steadied, banking hard despite its injury, and the human guided it away from the fight with gentle touches and calm words. They're not controlling them, Vorth's pilot whispered. They're partnering with them. Another creature swept past their viewport, so close Vorth could see the human on its back. A young male, barely into adulthood by human standards. He held no weapons, just reins attached to a harness. As the massive predator lined up on another dropship, the human called out targeting adjustments, his voice steady and confident. The creature responded instantly, adjusting its approach with perfect precision. The dropship exploded, debris scattered across the sky. All ships scatter formation, the fleet commander's voice crackled over the comm. Make for the forest landing zones, get below the canopy where those things can't follow. Vorth's pilot dove hard, the dropship's engines screaming as they plunged toward the tree line. Around them, other ships did the same, breaking off there. Attacks on the city and running for any cover they could find. More creatures pursued. Vorth watched the tactical display as ship after ship went down. Some crashed. Others managed controlled landings in forest clearings. Of the 500 ships that had launched, fewer than 300 reached the ground intact. Their dropship hit hard, landing gear crumpling as they impacted in a small clearing surrounded by dense trees. The rear hatch blew open and Vorth's squad poured out, weapons ready, scanning for threats. The forest around them was silent. Form up, Vorth ordered. Defensive perimeter, get me a count of how many ships made it down. Reports filtered in. 287 dropships accounted for. Approximately 20,000 troops on the ground, scattered across a 50-kilometer radius. The plan had been to land in cohesive units, take the city in one overwhelming push. Now they were fragmented, disorganized, separated. At least we're out of the air, Vorth's second said. "Those flying things can't get us down here." "Contact the Warlord," Vorth commanded. "Request orders." The comm officer worked for several minutes before shaking his head. "Something's jamming us, squad leader. I can reach nearby units but not the fleet." "Then we proceed with the mission. Reform with nearby squads, march on the city. The humans wanted to play with beasts. We'll show them what real predators look like." The words had barely left his mouth when the forest moved. Not wind, not animals fleeing, movement with purpose and intelligence. Shapes flickered between the trees, too fast to track. Vorth's squad raised their weapons, aiming at shadows. "Hold fire," Vorth ordered. "Conserve ammunition until we have clear targets." Something growled, deep, resonant, the sound of a creature that had no fear of anything. The sound came from everywhere and nowhere, echoing through the trees. Then Vorth saw them. Creatures emerged from the forest shadows like nightmares given form. Quadrupeds the size of ground vehicles, covered in overlapping plates of natural armor. Their backs bristled with razor-sharp spines. Their faces were all jaw and teeth, designed for one purpose: killing. The database designation appeared on Vorth's helmet display: Thornback Ravagers. Status: extinct for 20 years after their homeworld was destroyed in a corporate mining accident. Apparently, someone had failed to tell the Ravagers. They were extinct. They advanced slowly, spreading out to surround the Dralthan position. Vorth counted 8 of them, 8 against 50 soldiers. The math should favor the Dralthans. Then the humans appeared. They moved through the forest with the Ravagers, not behind them or commanding them from a distance. Beside them, walking with casual confidence next to creatures that could tear them apart without effort. One human, a woman with scars on her arms and dirt on her face, rested her hand on a Ravager's armored flank as they advanced together. "What are your orders?" Vorth II asked, his voice shaking slightly. Vorth had conquered a dozen worlds. He had faced species that fought with honor and species that fought with treachery. He had never faced anything like this. "Weapons free," he ordered. "Fire." Plasma bolts lit up the forest as 50 Dralthan soldiers opened fire. The Thornback Ravagers scattered with shocking speed for creatures their size, using the trees as cover while they closed the distance. Return fire came from the humans, small arms that should have been ineffective against Dralthan armor, but were aimed with disturbing precision at joint seals and visor slits. Vorth saw one of his soldiers go down, a bullet finding the gap between helmet and chest plate. Another stumbled as a Ravager slammed into his defensive shield, the impact driving him backward into a tree. "Maintain formation," Vorth shouted, but the formation was already breaking. The Ravagers weren't attacking like mindless beasts. They coordinated, flanked, created openings for each other with tactical intelligence that shouldn't be possible. And the humans fought alongside them with absolute trust. Vorth watched a Ravager charge his position. He raised his plasma rifle, finger tightening on the trigger. Then a human threw herself between him and the creature, taking a glancing hit to her shoulder. She screamed, not in pain but in fury, her voice cutting through the combat noise. "Medic, I need a medic for Shadow. He's bleeding." Vorth realized she wasn't calling for help for herself, but for the Ravager, which had taken shrapnel from an explosive round. The creature had pulled back, favoring one leg, and the human was more concerned about its injury than her own wound. The Ravager that should have been retreating to safety instead became a storm of teeth and claws. It threw itself at the Dralthan soldiers with renewed savagery, not the calculated intelligence from before, but pure protective rage. Someone had hurt its human, and that was unforgivable. 2 soldiers went down before Vorth managed to drive the creature back with concentrated fire. But the damage was done. The defensive line had broken. His troops were scattered through the forest, fighting individual battles instead of operating as a cohesive unit. "Fall back," Vorth ordered. "Regroup at the dropship." They retreated, maintaining fire discipline but giving ground. The Ravagers pursued but didn't press too hard, content to drive the Dralthans away rather than seek total annihilation. Vorth's tactical mind recognized the strategy. These humans weren't trying to kill every Drouthan soldier. They were bleeding the assault force, breaking their cohesion, forcing them into defensive positions. The retreat lasted 20 minutes. When Vorth's squad finally reached their dropship, they found survivors from 3 other squads already there. A quick count showed 40 soldiers, many wounded, all shaken. "Status report," Vorth demanded. The reports were grim. Every squad had encountered similar resistance. The forest teemed with creatures that shouldn't exist, led by humans who fought alongside them like family. Casualty rates were climbing. Communication with the fleet remained jammed, and worst of all, morale was cracking. "They're not fighting like they should," one soldier said, his voice hollow. "I shot one of those humans, hit her clean through the leg, she went down, couldn't walk, and you know what happened. One of those thornback things picked her up in its jaws, gentle as anything, and carried her to cover. Then it came back for us, and it wasn't fighting tactical anymore. It was personal." "They're beasts," Vorth said, trying to convince himself as much as his troops. "Animals following trained responses." "No," another soldier countered. "I saw a human take a hit meant for one of those creatures, threw himself right in front of plasma fire. The creature didn't leave his body, just stood over him, protecting him even though he was already dead. That's not training, squad leader, that's something else." Before Vorth could respond, the comm system crackled to life. The jamming had cleared, but the voice that came through wasn't from the fleet. It was Governor Webb, broadcasting on all Drouthan frequencies. "Soldiers of the Drouthan Supremacy, this is Cassidy. Webb, I'm broadcasting this message to all of your ground forces. I know you're scattered, wounded, and scared. I want you to know that doesn't have to continue. If you withdraw to your dropships and leave this world, we won't pursue. Medics will treat any wounded you leave behind and will return them to you at the border of our system. No tricks, no traps, just mercy." "It's a lie," someone muttered. "We don't surrender," Vorth said automatically, though the words felt hollow. The governor's voice continued. "I know your culture values strength. I know you see retreat as weakness, but there's strength in recognizing when a fight serves no purpose. You came here expecting to conquer a defenseless colony. Instead, you found something you didn't understand. A world where species that should be enemies have become family, where predators fight to protect, not to destroy. That's not weakness. It's something your empire has never encountered before." More silence on the Drouthan side. Vorth could see his soldiers exchanging glances, uncertainty spreading like poison. "You have 1 hour," Cassidy said. "After that, we'll assume you've chosen to continue fighting, and if you choose that path, you won't be facing humans trying to minimize casualties anymore. You'll face a forest full of predators protecting their home. I hope you'll choose differently." The transmission ended. Vorth looked around at his troops, saw the doubt in their eyes, the fear they were trying to hide. These were elite soldiers, veterans of dozens of campaigns, and they were beaten not by superior weapons or tactics, but by something they couldn't comprehend. Before he could decide what to do, movement flickered at the forest edge. Vorth raised his weapon, but what emerged wasn't attacking. A human, unarmed, hands raised, walking slowly into the clearing. She was young, wearing civilian clothes stained with dirt and what looked like dried blood. "Don't shoot," she called out. "I'm a medic. The governor sent me to offer aid to your wounded." "It's a trick," Vorth second said. The human stopped at the edge of weapon range. "No trick, just humanity. You have soldiers bleeding out right now. I can help them if you'll let me." "Why would you help us?" Vorth demanded. "We came to conquer your world." "Because you're hurt," the human said simply. "That's reason enough." She stood there, vulnerable and calm, waiting. Behind her, shapes moved in. The forest, not attacking, just watching. Ravagers and humans together, maintaining distance but ready to respond if their medic was threatened. Vorth had a choice to make: accept help from an enemy which went against everything his culture taught, or watch his soldiers die for pride. He lowered his weapon. "Help them," he said quietly. The human medic walked forward, and the Drouthan Empire learned what it truly meant to face an enemy that refused to hate. The communication from his ground forces had been chaotic and confused, but one thing was clear. The assault had failed catastrophically. 20,000 elite shock troops reduced to scattered, demoralized units, hundreds dead, the rest pinned down or in retreat. Cravish paced the bridge of his flagship, rage and confusion warring in his chest. This should have been simple, an agricultural colony with no military. Instead, his forces were being systematically dismantled by creatures that shouldn't exist and humans who fought alongside them like they shared one mind. "The humans are broadcasting again, Warlord," his communications officer reported. "Let me hear it." Governor Webb's voice filled the bridge, calm and measured. "Warlord Cravish, your ground assault has failed. Your soldiers are withdrawing. I'm offering them medical aid and safe passage off this world. I'm extending the same offer to you. Take your fleet and leave. No one else needs to die today." "She offers us mercy," Cravish's second growled, "as if she's in a position to offer anything." But they both knew the truth. The humans were in exactly that position. The assault had failed. The fleet still had orbital superiority, could still bombard the planet from space, but after what had happened on the ground, Cravish's command staff was visibly shaken. They had expected an easy victory. Instead, they'd witnessed something that challenged everything they believed about strength and conquest. "Warlord," the tactical officer called out, "we're detecting movement in the forests below, large-scale movement. Those creatures, hundreds of them, converging on the governor's location." "Show me." The displays revealed exactly what the officer had described. Creatures of every size and description moving through the forests in massive groups, all heading toward the capital city. Not attacking, not threatening, just gathering. "What is she doing?" someone whispered. Cravish's combat instincts, which had been screaming warnings since he first saw Governor Webb's smile, were now howling alarms. This human had something planned, something he wouldn't see coming until it was too late. "I'm going down there," Cravish announced. "Warlord, that's madness," his second protested. "It's clearly a trap." "Everything about this world is a trap," Cravish said. "But I will not make decisions from orbit like a coward. Prepare my personal guard, 200 warriors, full combat armor. We're going to that garden where she served tea, and we're going to end this." The descent was tense. Cravish's guard filled 3 assault shuttles armed for war. They landed in the same plaza as before, weapons ready, scanning for threats. The city around them was quiet, too quiet. No civilians, no visible defenses, just empty streets and that garden where Governor Webb had promised tea. They advanced on foot, 200 Drouthan warriors moving in perfect formation. The garden appeared ahead, and Cravish saw her sitting at that same table, in the same chair, as if time had frozen since their last meeting. She was alone. Completely, impossibly alone. "It's definitely a trap," Cravish's second said. "Forward," Cravish ordered. They entered the garden, weapons raised. Governor Webb didn't move, didn't flinch. She simply watched them come, that calm expression never wavering. Cravish approached until he stood directly before her, his plasma rifle pointed at her chest. Around him, his guards had taken defensive positions, expecting an ambush from every direction. "Governor Webb," Cravish said coldly, "your defenses have failed. Your creatures cannot reach us before we end you. I'm going to execute you now, broadcast it across your planet, and break whatever resistance remains. Do you have any final words?" Cassidy stood slowly. She was unarmed, vulnerable, completely at his mercy. When she spoke, her voice carried the same warmth it had during their first meeting. "I have words, yes. I want you to know I sent everyone away. My guards, my advisors, the people who would fight for me. I told them to leave because you came here to kill me, and I won't let anyone else die trying to stop you." "How noble," Cravish sneered, "and pointless." "Maybe," Cassidy agreed. "But I want you to understand something, Warlord. You think you're about to win. You think executing me will break our resistance, but you don't understand what this place really is or what we've built here. I understand you have trained beasts to fight for you. That ends now. "They're not trained," Cassidy said quietly. "And they don't fight for us, they fight with us because we're family." Sentimental nonsense. "Is it?" Cassidy's eyes held his. "Look around, Warlord, really look." Cravish glanced around reflexively, expecting to see nothing but garden and empty buildings. Instead, he saw movement. Slow, deliberate movement from every direction. The shadows shifted. The ground trembled softly, rhythmically, like a heartbeat. Then they emerged. From every street, every building, every shadow, the creatures came. But these weren't the thornback ravagers or flying predators his forces had faced in the forest. These were larger, so much larger. A steelclaw matriarch, 40 feet from nose to tail, her armored hide scarred from 100 battles on her dying homeworld. Shadow serpents that flowed like liquid darkness, their bodies seeming to phase between solid and smoke. A creature his database identified as a Titan maw, extinct for 30 years, so large its head alone was the size of his shuttle. And with each creature, walking calmly beside beings that could destroy them with a casual motion, were humans. They touched the creatures gently, spoke to them softly, and the massive predators responded with trust so absolute it seemed to break natural law. Cravish's guards stepped backward involuntarily. Several weapons shook in their wielders' hands. "Stand firm," Cravish roared, but his own voice wavered. The creatures kept coming, not attacking, but making their presence unmistakably clear. They filled the plaza, the streets, the spaces between buildings, hundreds of them, and hundreds of humans among them. Cassidy walked forward, moving among the massive predators without fear. She placed her hand on the steelclaw matriarch's scarred flank, and the enormous creature lowered its head toward her with gentle affection. A shadow serpent wound around her shoulders like a living scarf, and she scratched under its jaw while it rumbled with contentment. "Do you understand now?" Cassidy asked, turning back to face Cravish. "Every creature on this world was rescued from extinction, saved by humans when the rest of the galaxy wanted them dead because they were dangerous or inconvenient or not profitable enough to protect. We brought them here. We healed them. We showed them what family means, and now," she gestured to the gathered assembly, "now they've shown us the same thing." One of Cravish's guards broke, turned, and ran, then another. Within seconds, half his elite force was fleeing in panic, their discipline shattered by sheer primal fear. The creatures didn't pursue. They simply watched, still and silent, while the Dralthans scattered. Cravish remained, though every instinct screamed at him to join the retreat. He had conquered fortress worlds. He had broken species that wielded weapons beyond Dralthan science. But he had never faced this, beings that should be mortal enemies living as one, predators protecting instead of destroying. "You could kill me right now," Cassidy said softly. "Shoot me where I stand, but then what? Do you think they'll let you leave? Do you think they'll forgive you for taking their family?" She shook her head. "They won't attack you, Warlord, not unless you attack first, but they won't let you hurt anyone here. They can't. It's not in their nature anymore." "We could orbital bombard," Cravish said, though the words sounded hollow even to him. "Destroy everything from space." "You could try," Cassidy agreed. "But you'd have to destroy the entire planet to be sure. Every forest, every ocean, every mountain range. And even then, some would survive. And they would remember. The galaxy would remember. The Dralthan supremacy, so strong they had to genocide an entire world because they couldn't understand cooperation." Cravish's weapon lowered slowly, not from conscious choice but from simple recognition of truth. He had lost. Not in battle, not through superior force, but through encountering something his empire had no answer for. "What do you want?" he asked finally. "For you to leave," Cassidy said simply. "Take your fleet, return your soldiers, tell the supremacy about what you found here, and maybe eventually you'll understand what we've built, not weakness, not submission, just a different kind of strength." The massive creatures around them pressed closer, not threatening but making their solidarity unmistakable. Cravish looked into the eyes of the steelclaw matriarch and saw intelligence there, and purpose, and absolute commitment to protecting the small human standing beside it. He had conquered worlds through fear. These humans had conquered death through compassion. There was no contest. The evacuation took 6 hours, Cravish's remaining. Ground forces withdrew to their dropships, many of them carrying wounded comrades. True to her word, Governor Webb's medics had treated Drouthan casualties without hesitation, returning them to their units with bandages and medical supplies. Cravish stood on his flagship bridge, watching the last shuttle clear New Victoria's atmosphere. His command staff was silent, their earlier confidence replaced by something none of them wanted to acknowledge: shame. "All ships report ready for hyperspace jump, Warlord," his navigation officer said quietly. "Hold position," Cravish ordered. "Warlords." "I said hold." Cravish stared at the planet below, his mind replaying everything he'd witnessed. The creatures fighting alongside humans, the medic who had risked herself to help enemy soldiers, Governor Webb standing alone and unafraid while surrounded by beings that could have torn him apart. "Open a channel to the planet, direct to Governor Webb." The communication established quickly. Cassidy appeared on screen, still in that garden though the creatures had withdrawn. She looked tired but calm. "Warlord Cravish," she said, "are your forces safely away?" "They are," Cravish said, "because you allowed them to be. I told you we would show mercy." "You did," Cravish paused, struggling with words he'd never expected to say. "I have conquered 47 star systems, broken resistance on dozens of worlds. I have never encountered anything like what you've built here." "I hope that's a good thing," Cassidy said softly. "I don't know what it is," Cravish admitted. "My entire culture is built on strength through force. The strong rule, the weak submit. But you've shown me something different: predators that protect, enemies that heal, strength through cooperation instead of conquest." "It's not perfect," Cassidy said. "We've lost people, made mistakes. But we keep trying because the alternative is a galaxy where might makes right, where compassion is weakness, where everything that's different must be destroyed or dominated." Cravish nodded slowly. "I'm going to tell the supremacy about New Victoria. I'm going to recommend that this system be declared forbidden space, never to be attacked or threatened." "That's all I ask," Cassidy said. "But I need to know," Cravish continued. "If we had continued the assault, if we had committed to orbital bombardment, total destruction, would you have survived?" Cassidy's smile held. "Sadness, honestly, I don't know. We would have fought with everything we had. The creatures would have protected us to their last breath. Some might have survived deep underground or in remote areas. But it would have been devastation, death, maybe the end of everything we built here. Then why risk it? Why not simply submit, preserve your lives, wait for a better opportunity?" "Because some things are worth dying for, Warlord. Freedom, peace, the right to live without fear. The bonds we've built with these creatures. If we'd submitted, if we'd let you take all that away, we wouldn't really be alive anyway. We'd just be existing, waiting for permission to matter." Cravish was silent for a long moment. In his culture, such talk was weakness. But looking at this human who had faced down his entire fleet armed with nothing but conviction and impossible alliances, he couldn't find weakness anywhere. "What you've built here," he said finally, "it won't last. The galaxy is harsh. There are worse than the Drouthan supremacy out there. Empires that will see your world and want to study it, exploit it, take what you've learned for themselves." "Then we'll face them the same way we faced you," Cassidy said. "Together, human and creature standing as family. Maybe we'll fall eventually, but we'll fall having lived the way we believe is right, not as something we're not." Cravish made his decision. "I'm sending coordinates for a neutral space station on the border of supremacy territory. If you ever need anything, allies against a greater threat, warning about incoming dangers, a place to send refugees, contact me there. I can't promise the supremacy will help, but I can promise I will listen." Cassidy's eyes widened slightly. "Thank you, Warlord. That means more than you know." "Don't thank me yet," Cravish said. "I'm still going to broadcast what happened here. Other worlds will hear about New Victoria. Some will want to learn from you. Others will see you as a threat. You've made yourselves known to the galaxy now." "We were always going to eventually," Cassidy said. Better that they hear about us from someone who understands what we really are, rather than from rumors and fear. Then let them hear this, Cravish said. He activated fleet-wide recording, knowing this message would spread across supremacy space within days. This is Warlord Cravish of the Dralthan Supremacy. I withdrew my forces from New Victoria. Today, not through defeat in battle, but through recognition of a truth my culture has never acknowledged. Strength is not only found in conquest. These humans have weaponized something we cannot fight: compassion. They have turned predators into protectors, enemies into family, death into life. Any force that attacks New Victoria will face not an army but a world united by bonds stronger than fear or force. I recommend this system be granted autonomous status, never to be threatened by the supremacy again. He deactivated the recording and looked at Cassidy. That will cause problems in my government. Some will call me weak, soft, a traitor to Dralthan values. And what will you tell them? Cassidy asked. That I learned something on New Victoria, Cravish said. That there are different kinds of strength, and the one I found here might be the strongest of all. Then maybe this wasn't just about saving our world, Cassidy said softly. Maybe it was about saving something in you too. Cravish had no response to that. He simply nodded, then gave the order. All ships prepare for hyperspace jump. We're going home. The Dralthan fleet departed, leaving New Victoria in peace. On the planet below, Cassidy stood in her garden, surrounded by creatures from dying worlds that had been given new life. Around her, the colonists emerged from shelters, humans and creatures together, watching the sky as the threat vanished into the stars. A young child approached, holding the hand of a massive shadow serpent that moved with surprising gentleness. "Did we win?" the child asked. Cassidy knelt down, meeting the child's eyes. "We didn't win or lose, we just showed them who we are, what we believe in, and sometimes that's enough." The Steelclaw matriarch rumbled softly, lowering her enormous head to nuzzle Cassidy gently. Other creatures gathered close, humans among them, a family of impossible partnerships that refused to accept what the galaxy said was natural. Word of New Victoria spread quickly after Cravish's broadcast. Some species saw the colony as a beacon of hope, others as a dangerous aberration. But all who heard the story understood one truth. Something new had emerged in the galaxy, something that challenged centuries of assumptions about strength, survival, and what it meant to be truly alive. And in her garden, surrounded by family both human and otherwise, Cassidy Webb smiled. Not the unsettling smile that had warned a warlord he'd made a terrible mistake, but a genuine expression of peace. They had survived. They had protected what mattered. And they had done it not through violence or domination, but through showing the galaxy that even in darkness, compassion could light the way forward. The stars turned overhead, indifferent and eternal. But on one small world in the vastness of space, humans and creatures proved that even the smallest light could hold back the night if it refused to go out.